Hello everyone, I'm SUDIKCHA, a trainee teacher of Siliguri B.Ed College. Currently, I'm in second semester and my method paper is Political Science. Now before we begin a discussion about today's topic, let me tell you a short story about Janardhan. Janardhan works in a call center. He leaves late in the evening for his work, becomes John when he enters his office, acquires a new accent, and he speaks in a completely different language with his clients who are living thousands of miles away from him. Janardhan also works all night, which is actually daytime for his overseas clients, and he renders services to somebody who in all probability he is never likely to meet personally. Now this is the daily routine of Janardhan, and his holidays also do not correspond to the Indian calendar but to those of his clients who happen to be from the US. Now this story, it perfectly illustrates the topic that we are going to discuss today. That is the phenomenon of globalization, which has been present since the 1980s and which still remains elusive as a concept because it is variously defined as a process, as a policy, as a marketing strategy, a predicament, and even an ideology. Now this topic has been taken from Chapter 8, NCERT Political Science, Contemporary World Politics book of Class 12. And in this video, we are going to discuss about three major aspects which are related to this chapter. That is, what is globalization, what are the causes of globalization, and finally, the components of globalization. Now let us begin this video by asking the question, what is globalization? Now, globalization is a widely discussed topic and it is a difficult one as well because there are books published about it, there are videos dedicated to it, there are plenty of essays and articles written about it, which also means that it is variously defined by many as many things. For some, it is a policy, a process, while for others, it is a marketing strategy and even an ideology. Now, the problem to understanding globalization, it stems from the fact that globalization is not a simple process, but it is a complex one, and therefore making it difficult to reduce it into a single theme. Now, does this mean that we do not have any definition for globalization? Well, absolutely not, because there are definitions for globalization, and in fact, we can define globalization as a multi-dimensional process of integrating the economies of one country with the economies of other countries in the process of free flow of trade and capital, which also includes movements of people. Now, what is meant by this is that globalization as a phenomenon, it can be equated with flows, and these flows can be of various types. For instance, people moving from one place to another in search of a better livelihood, commodities being transported across borders, ideas moving from one part of the world to another, or capital shunted between two economies. Now, globalization has made it so easy that a huge flow of electronic money now surge around the world with the flip of a computer switch. And similarly, the advancements in cable and satellite communication, it has also allowed phone messages and TV programs to be transmitted around the world almost instantly. But the pace of this flow, it can vary. For instance, the transport of capital and commodities, it can be more quicker and wider than the movement of people from one part of the world to another. Now let us move on to the causes of globalization. So if globalization, if it is all about the flows of ideas, capital, commodities and people from one part of the world to another, then it is logical to think that there is nothing new about it because these flows, it has been present through much of human history. But what makes contemporary globalization unique is the scale and speed of these flows. And there are three factors which have contributed towards the growth of contemporary globalization. Number one is the historical factor. Globalization as a historical process, it began with the first movement of people from Africa to different parts of the world. And historically, merchants, migrants and people, they have always delivered the products, the ideas, the customs and the cultures to new places. And in fact, practices like borrowing, melding and adaptation of outside influences, it has always been a part of a human life. Number 2 is the technological factor. Now, technological factor, it remains as a crucial factor for the growth of globalization, especially in the recent years with the invention of mobile phones, laptops, computers, etc. It has revolutionized communication in different parts of the world. And as a result of this revolution, the ability of ideas, capital, commodities and people to move more easily from one part of the world to another has been made possible largely by technological advances. Now we all do online shopping today, we all indulge in it, and it is all because of the advancements in technology and communication, and it has in fact made our life so easy and convenient as well, which is a positive effect of globalization. Now number 3 is the human factor. Now, no matter globalization cannot emerge merely because of the availability of improved communication. But what is also important is for people in different parts of the world to recognize these interconnections with the rest of the world. Now, no matter how good an innovation is, how developed a technology is, if people are not made aware of it, if people do not recognize it, and if they do not use it, then these technology and innovations, they go in vain. But because of these advancements in technology and communication, we are now more aware of the events taking place in one part of the world. And we are also aware that these events, they have an impact on another part of the world. For example, the bird flu, tsunami or the recent COVID-19 is not only confined to any particular nation, and it does not respect national boundaries. Now these things, they not only affect the people and lives of people and their jobs from the country in which they originated, but these have affected, and it is increasingly affecting the lives and jobs of the people worldwide. Now similarly, when major economic events take place, the impact is felt outside the immediate local, national or regional environment, but also at the global level. Now if a recession takes place in one part of the world, it will not only affect the nationals of that country, but it will affect the citizens of another country who work there, who have a job there, or the country with which it has economic and political ties with. So this means that there are consequences to globalization as well, because as we all know that globalization is a complex web of interconnectedness where lives are increasingly shaped by events that occur and decisions that are taken at a great distance from us. And there are 3 major consequences of globalization, which are the political globalization, the economic globalization and the cultural globalization. Let us discuss about the political consequences of globalization. In political consequences, let us see how does globalization affect the traditional concept of state sovereignty. Now, at the most simple level, what globalization does is that it leads to an erosion of states' capacity, that is, its ability to do what it does. And political globalization is evident in the growing importance of international organization with transnational character, which means that they exercise their jurisdiction not only in a single state but in an international area consisting of several states. And we find the emergence of such international organizations after the post-1945 period, like the United Nations, the IMF, the World Bank, the WTO, the European Union, the NATO, etc. Another consequence of political globalization is the entry and increased role of the multinational companies. Now these companies are those companies which control the investment, technology, trade, etc. And they have the offices and subsidiaries not only in their own country but beyond the boundary of their own country, that is more than one country. And some of the examples of these MNCs include Apple, Microsoft, KFC, McDonald's, etc. In some cases, the increasing spread of multinational companies leads to a reduction in the capacity of the governments to take decisions on their own. Now, in some cases, What these MNCs do is that they try to influence the public policy of certain states, especially the third world countries, by means of manipulation. And what they do is that they act as a spokesman of the parent country, and they politically influence the public policy of those countries. For example, most of the countries in Latin and Central America, like Argentina, Uruguay, Chile, etc., the economies are so poor that if the MNCs they withdraw from them, it will lead to a collapse of the indigenous economies. But at the same time, globalization does not always reduce the state's capacity, as the importance of the state is an unchallenged basis of political community, and the state discharges its essential functions and also consciously withdraws from certain domains from which it wishes to. Now, there are positive aspects of political globalization as well. In some respect, the state's capacity has also received a boost, as it is now easy and convenient for the state to collect information about its citizens, which has allowed them to rule in a better way, thus becoming more powerful and more stronger than they were before because of these technological advancements. Now, this was all about political consequences of globalization, of political globalization. In our next video, we will discuss about economic consequence and cultural consequences. So please stay tuned, and thank you for watching.